You are muted, Ray.
Hey, yeah, why don't we just get started? Looks like Carl can't join today. Cool. Javi, I know that you said there's a couple things you wanted to share on the exporter.
Yes. So let me share my screen. Yeah. So I want to like show window here. Yep. So one problem that we had is that in our exporter from SQL Mesh to BigQuery, we couldn't export really big files. So for people who don't know how it works under the hood, so basically there's one really nice feature of Trino that allows you to have an external table, which means that you can create another SQL table which references, for example, GCS. So when you do like that that export, what Trino is doing, it is writing everything in Parquet files to this GCS bucket, and then we take all of these Parquet files and we map them to BigQuery again. The thing is that there's a limit which is hard-coded into these load jobs, which is only 10,000 items, which what you need to do to just fix it is split in batches of like 10,000 and make all the load. But what I want people to know here is that when we do these kind of like jobs, it's really important to like have a cleanup as well. And in the end of the day, it's really easy. It's just like doing one config like this. So under the hood, that it's how it works. You have an external table that Trino references. You copy everything, and then we fetch all of this bucket, all of those files in a bucket, and we fetch them back to BigQuery. So yeah, this is a small fix that I wanted to show. And the other cool thing is that we have our OSO agent. So if I go to agent.opensource.server.status, we have it running. So basically, this is the app that Ruben has been doing using Arise deployed on production. And it was actually a journey to deploy this because it's not really straightforward as it seems. So it is actually three things. So the first three things that you need to do: you need to modify the Helm charts, you need to deploy it, and then you need to route everything through Cloudflare. So let's go step by step, and I'll show you how it's done. Okay, so this is not. Oh no, so this is not the PR. So let me share code so you can actually see how it works. Stop presenting and also here. Yep. So I think this is really important for people to know because if you want to deploy something, it's not easy. So here in Ops, we have all of our operation-related charts and configurations, and everything here is in these Kate's apps, and you want production. So if you want to create a new deployment, you need to create a new folder, and you need to have these two values, which is custom help values and customization.yaml. Here in customization.yaml at the root in the Kate's app, you need to add the new folder, so it is like registered. And here in the customization.yaml, the only thing you need to do is you have this base agent resource, which has how to run the command, how many intervals we want to run it, and some configuration. This is like really, really simple. But the hard part is that this chart is actually here. I think it's one of these. It's in the generic. Yeah. So this is the chart. Sorry, this one. So if you go here, you can see that you have this app entry, which is this one, which is here. So this will get rendered with all of those values, and that's how the production works. And you need to connect to the production cluster, and you need to edit some configuration. So instead of like flags pointing to the main branch, you need to point to your branch. Then you need to trigger a refresh. So you need to do a command which changes a tag regarding the latest deployment. So Flags pulls again your configuration. Once that is done, you are now on your branch, and you need to like double check that your app is running. So we will go here to, if you go here to the agent. Sorry, not this one, this one. Here, for example, we are not telling it exactly where to pull, like what the endpoint is, but we're saying it that it should be pointing to this local Kubernetes URL. And then we need to go to Cloudflare. And the thing is that it is not done automatically. Surprisingly, you need to go to Cloudflare. You need to actually copy this IP and this URL and pointing it to the agent subdomain. and then you need to create a new DNS resource and wait for it to load. So it is a really complex job. Like, you need to do a lot of things, and it's really slow because you need to wait a lot in between redeployments, and it is not super verbose when it fails. You need to kind of investigate. But yeah, you mainly need to create this folder here, which is the values for the chart. You need to create the base one, which should configure how to run it, and then you need to go to Cloudflare and deploy it and double check. And we got that working. So let me show you here. So it is still window here. So if we go to open source.observer, and here in my account, well, I can go to Studio, and here if we go to like the AI icon here and we click it, this is with our own agent. So I can do something like show me the disables in open source observer. The thing is that we are still iterating, so it's still in early stages. We want to like train our agent more and give it more tools. So this is now connected to production, which means that it's working with it's not just using Gemini, which is always nice to see. But yeah, mainly if people, when you want to deploy something new to production, there's a Loom, which Ruben did, and I probably should do a new one that extends his. So yes. Any questions? Any concerns?
Yeah, how much have you been following what he's been doing with Docker versioning?
I have been following it. I kind of want to have a talk with him to go more into depth. That's on my pending. I'm waiting for him to arrive. But yeah, I've been seeing his PRs.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think that'll be interesting because yeah, it's all related. But I want to understand how the versioning, how we decide what versioning gets served, how we decide, yeah, how we decide what gets versioned, and then also how we think about how that ties into the eval system and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Yeah. Cool. But yeah, that's awesome. Anything else you want to share?
No, I don't think so. That should be everything. Yeah, I mean, we're also working on pricing, creative strategy, and we are starting to, deploy some proof of concepts and starting with that work. So that's what we will do during this sprint. So hopefully by the next demo, we can share the dashboard showing the credits and Stripe flow and some analytics. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about that.
Cool. And I know you've been playing around with like a lot of the, the back end analytics and post hog and tracking and stuff. I know I did a brief demo of post hog last time. Yeah, were you part of that? Were you able to watch that? Or?
I was, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I could show. I'm like blanking right now how much of this you already know versus don't know yet. But I assume that you have been playing around with like a lot of the activity tracking. There's a lot more like fields now, right?
Yeah.
So for example, we are now keeping track of the query operation, what the query is, and what models are being touched. And we can just, other things, yeah, for observability, like you said, this is probably, if you're looking for observability, this is the right place to do it, right? So what was another good example? I had a good one pulled up before. Oh yeah, here's a good example where you can see, somebody using PyOSO, what models they're touching, but also what is the query that they're using.
Yep.
So yeah, I would definitely add more metadata in here if you want to see what else is happening. And then if you haven't played with this yet, the product analytics insights is definitely the right place to filter and take a look at things. So we can break down by, for example, the Which one do I want? Probably the path. No, not the path. Probably also want to probably do want some way to filter out all the uptime robot stuff, because that kind of artificially inflates all of
Yeah,
our analytics.
I think that they should put it in the headers, so we should just set a rule to ignore it in pulse out.
Yeah, exactly. We should probably do that. But yeah, this is definitely the right place to play with observability. And as I mentioned earlier, there is a feature flags product offering here, so we can definitely when we want to start, doing different types of experiments. They also have experiments here, which, if you want to start doing A/B testing and grouping of users and stuff, this is the right place to do that. So yeah, in terms of things that I wanted to demo, Javi should be pretty familiar with all this now, but there's a lot more instrumentation on authentication. There are still a handful of anonymous users. So in terms of like what I would think of as anonymous, oh, hey, Ruben, what is Ruben doing? Showing tables. In terms of what's like anonymous right now, I would say there's still, like, the GraphQL API is not fully strict yet. And I think what I'm worried about is that if we make it strict, it would break some applications. So we're just gonna have to keep an eye out for anonymous queries. What else? Oh yeah, the other thing that I was gonna show, and this probably just makes it much more visible for you, Javi, like kind of what I had imagined on the front end side. I've been prototyping a bunch of like really random stuff. So yeah, you'll see that a lot of this is a little bit rejiggered since we last chatted. It is kind of like fake feature flagged right now. So if you log in with a non-Kariba Labs account, this is what you would see. So all of this stuff ends up being hidden. You still can make API keys, so this is probably something we want to like address, is like trying to get more of the organization's features up to date so that you can, because we're not ready to show that yet because it's not quite ready. But if we are going to migrate the API keys over, we're going to need to like actually get that mature first. But let me come back into my own account. Yeah, eventually we'll hire a designer to make this not look terrible. But yeah, this was your Monaco code editor. All of this should be working. And then also now we have like some ability for organizations. And then this is just like placeholder stuff. So, there's, this is just test data right now. There's nothing in here that's actually useful, but eventually we should start mocking out like what you want to see here. And we can just like, if you want to do this together, we can do this together. I imagine it's just like, I don't know, billing address and some information about your current plan and stuff like that. But like, we should start mocking out what it looks like. I think the workflow that I kind of envision is that you and I come at it from two ends first. So on one end, this is all hidden anyway. So let's just create the text boxes. Let's just create the text fields. Let's style it the way that we want to style it. We can start working on visually what we want this to look like. No functionality, right? On the other end of the spectrum, you're working on API routes that have the functionality. You're implementing all of that, yada, yada, yada. And then there's the stuff in between. What I'm working on right now is trying to improve how we do the stuff in between. Previously, the way that we did that was with a generic Supabase component. And I've just like gotten frustrated enough that it's like it's a little bit too limited, because like if you take a look at what it looks like, you know, under the hood. I'll show you an example of one that I had to deal with recently. So for something like this, right, it's a popover and there's a bunch of content. And right now, you know, I have a bunch of buttons, and these buttons reflect organization data. And where does the organization data come from? From this Supabase query. And the way that it's done right now is the Supabase query, you know, it kind of just makes a visual UX around what you would typically pass into the Supabase JavaScript client, which, you know, works just fine. But a lot of times you want to fetch more than one table, or you want to do like multiple actions before you do something, right? So for example, if I create a user, you know, when I create the user, I have to write to multiple tables and then also do like an email invite, right? Which, you know, obviously this wouldn't be able to support. So what I'm envisioning in the future is like basically a registry of event handlers, right? So for any kind of event, or there's like basically a registry of event handlers and a registry of data providers, right? So for anything that I want to visually show, like a list of all the organizations that I'm a part of, there should be some data fetcher in that registry that I can just like, you know, toggle and then give me the full list of data that I need, and then I can WYSIWYG the rest of it, right? Or if there's a button that's supposed to create an organization or invite a user or delete a user or something like that, we can create all of these event handlers in code. We can write tests that test the behavior of all of these, you know, all of these actions in code. And then I can import them into Plasmic, and like the visual WYSIWYG styling, that's like separate, but the functionality, you know, probably needs to exist in code. So that's kind of what I'm working on right now, is basically this registry of, you know, application event handlers and data providers that will give me everything that I need, so that when a designer comes in here, all they need to do is toggle which event handler this button should trigger, or, you know, which data I want to see in this context, right? And then in code, we can kind of manage the functionality. So it basically turns into a nice, I don't know what you want to call it, like a hook library or something like that, that like just embodies all of the application logic of our application.
Yeah, you can test it and it can be really robust. Yeah, that we should do.
Yeah, that's the other thing, is we have no tests right now in our front end, which is actually a little bit scary. So I do want to start implementing more Jest tests around that application functionality. And then that's all you really need, right? Like you don't really need to test the visual stuff, because that we can see. But I think that's the right boundary. So that's what I'm working on this week. I'm trying to do it for organization management first, basically just creating organizations, listing my organizations, inviting people to them, accepting invites, all that logic I want to write in code, and then import it, and then visually, you know, show it, and then we can hire a designer to make it prettier. That's kind of how I'm imagining this. Same thing with Stripe, right? So we can have like an event handler for different actions you want to take in Stripe, like subscribe, upgrade, cancel. You know, should all be separate things in the registry.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah. Any questions? Does that make sense?
Sounds good. Exciting progress. I like how it's looking with all organizations, all the picking. I'm already sort of imagining how I want the billing, for example, to look. Nice.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, if you already know what you want to look like, feel free to go in and straight up edit it. It's just placeholder data right now. Cool. Anything you want to demo, Evan?
Yeah, I was about to say, I actually remembered I have something I can share pretty quickly.
Yeah, you had a bunch of stuff you did this sprint, and I was actually kind of curious about it. Like you had cursor rules.
Yeah,
You
that's what I
had
was going to show actually.
okay. You also had like yeah, utility categories and a bunch of other stuff that yeah, feel free to
Yeah.
share any
I
of
mean,
it.
I guess I could show all I could walk through all that. I'll start with the cursor rules. So it's pretty quick, but I created kind of two main different types of cursor rules. So just for context for those that don't know, you can define like a set of rules that pretty much then when you're using cursor, you can like add them. And it will then paste that context into cursor and so that when you're talking to it, the LLM knows to follow those rules. So I made a couple of different ones. So the first one that I made is this one here, just called like OSO Basics. And this is like the generic main primary set of rules that you use to help the LLM understand how to work with PyOSO. So it's like as of now, it's on always apply. So like if you were to fork or clone the insights repo and use it in cursor, this would just automatically get applied. But that's configurable. And then it just walks through a bunch of things like how to get, this is like a little short snippet of the PyOSO quick start and how to get it to work. The warehouse, I took a lot of this from Carl's like dot context that he was giving to dot and refactored it. And then I added some like rules at the bottom and some troubleshooting workflows. I think the big thing is yeah, helping it understand like how to find things. And like here, if a table's not found, like if it doesn't understand what table to use, it can go look in models v0 and go find them, et cetera, et cetera. And I tested it a little bit locally and it worked really well. I think the cool part is uh, this little snippet. I think it's this one. Yeah, this little snippet here where like if things go wrong and it breaks and it can't figure it out itself, it kind of switches over into like it opens it up to the user. But importantly, all this context that I provided here, it'll actually like use it as an explanation and teach the user. Because I am assuming if someone's using cursor, they might not understand a lot of the context about like I don't know, our query template or how things are structured. So that worked really well. That way, even if cursor gets stuck, it can help you figure it out. So yeah, I'm trying to see. Okay, so I think that's just an overview of this one. And then I was thinking through, so because cursor has this cool functionality where you can actually add rules when you like different rules when you want, so that in different prompts you'll have different sets of rules. And so I was thinking about how we could use that effectively. And then I had an idea that we could actually use that really well when it comes to tutorials. And so what I then went ahead and did was I created tutorials for or a unique like set of cursor rules for each tutorial. And so what I made was a little Python file that uses GitHub Actions. And whenever a new tutorial gets pushed into this folder, we'll automatically go and generate a cursor rule for it. And it basically, reads it in, passes it to an LLM with a prompt to generate the rules. And they're designed so that to curse like to with the steps, the specific steps that the actual tutorial walks through, and as well as like an explanation for what it's looking to do and what it's trying to do, so that if someone's trying to follow along, they can just add the name of the tutorial in the rules will then come in. It'll also add what's called the glob, which in cursor rules is just like it'll put the actual file in so it can reference that as context. And then the user can easily follow along with the tutorial. Rather than having to just follow along alone, they can actually follow along with the cursor bot. I also tested that a little locally too. Worked really well. Like the cool
Yeah,
part
can you just
was,
show an example? Can you just
yeah,
walk us through an example?
yeah. I don't have cursor open. Give me 1 second to pull this up. Yeah, it might take me a second. I need to open everything up. I don't use cursor very regularly, so I have to.
I know that Carl likes to use Klein. Obviously, there's a few other, I use Cody every once in a while, but like, do you know whether or not some of these other, agent, coding bots have similar types of configuration files that you can adapt this to, or is this very specific to Cursor?
That's a good question. That's something I can look into. I honestly am only like familiar with Cursor, but I can look into that.
Yeah, Klein would be a good one, just because I know that Carl likes it. I also have it installed, and it's built into VS Code. Copilot's. You might argue that it's like a little bit behind Cursor, but it probably is the most widely used. So if there was like better Cursor support, that Copilot support, that could also be really useful.
Yeah, I can look into that as well. Okay, I think I'm running into a problem because my billing expired for Cursor.
Okay, no worries. Yeah, feel free to record a Loom next time.
Here, I can show. Yeah, I'll record a Loom later today, but like, here's like a little. I just ran it initially, but here's a little bit. So you can this is a little bit of it in action. Let me grow this bigger. So you can add the rule set here. And then I just asked to get a list of projects in OSO. And it will give you, because like I gave it the quick start stuff, so it'll give you the little quick start of how to get PyOSO set up with the client and everything. Here's the query. And then it also understands like the OSO API key and like gives you the link to find that. But yeah, this isn't correct. So I think there's only so much you can do with this. But I think the idea is that if this query doesn't work, based on the error, like Cursor should be able to help you get to the proper table and everything. But I can record a Loom of it working.
Cool. Yeah, the other thing is just like, if we actually do get this to work for something like Klein, assuming that it has something similar, like Carl writes Jupyter notebooks so often that like a great goal would be that, something like this can help accelerate his workflow is like, a really like, as opposed to just right now, I feel like it's very proof of concept, and it's cool that you've shown that we can get it to work. But I am kind of curious, like, what is the gap between demonstrating this and Carl loving it so much that he actually wants to use it every day?
Yeah, I can. The main thing that I'm waiting for him to approve the GitHub action stuff, and then the tutorial rules should start to get generated, and then we can actually play around with those and see how well they perform. Because I think those are probably the main ones that will be more helpful if they work well.
Cool.
Okay, and then I can share something else as well. Okay. Okay, so I can just walk through this. So I worked on an issue where I helped assign utility categories to all of the different dev tooling projects with an LLM. And so I can just kind of show what I did there. I basically did a structure where I run through an LLM a couple of different times. The first run through, so first I read in all of the readmes of each repo. First, I used this prompt here to generate a summary that summarized the actual the repo and what it does and its main core functionality. Then the second run through uses that summary and then uses the README to then assign categories to this respective repo. And I use this to first determine like what the proper set of categories is. Then I paused after this and consolidated all of the categories into a core set of like, I think it was like 10 or 12 core categories that I used. And then I finally ran through one more time with those categories, and it would actually classify based on the summary, based on the candidates, it would summarize, classify which one, each repo to a category. And I think I can show the categories here. Yeah, so these are the final categories I used. This is just like a little mapping. So basically all of the keys map to this final category. But I used smart contract libraries, developer tooling frameworks, security testing tools, DeFi protocol liquidity tools, governance DAO platforms, dApp template front-end frameworks. I'm new to a lot of this stuff. So this is new stuff, but blockchain infrastructure, data analytics indexing, NFT media content platforms, and then privacy identity account abstraction. And so everything falls into one of these categories. Oh yeah, and then here's the final count. Or no, those are the category here. Here's the final count of where everything got assigned and where stuff generally falls. Yeah, pretty simple, like nothing too crazy, but that was the utility categories.
I've actually been, I forked this and I've been testing it out because I showed it to Jonas, and I knew you were off yesterday and he had like 6 questions that he wanted to test. So it was a great start. I was able to get it running very quickly, and Vibe coded something that allows a bit more functionality. So we can chat about it. I'm happy to hand it back over to you, but it's a cool first implementation.
Yeah.
You very quickly, I think this is the challenge with these types of things, that you get like a 80% solution very quickly, and then the last 20% is infuriatingly difficult.
Yeah.
But in any case, I have a version now which might be good enough. We'll have to see.
Sweet.
Yeah. Are we at the end of demo day, or do we have time for one more thing?
Is there something you want to share?
There is one thing I could share, actually. I was hoping to have a bit more, but a few things are broken right now. Let me just share this budget board. So one of the big questions we've been helping Optimism answer is, what is the ROI of different token allocation programs? I think long-term, they want some unified view of all of their different token allocation programs, not just retro funding, but any incentive program, and being able to have comparable metrics to evaluate what the ROI was. It's a very, very quick version of it. What you can do here is select around these map to our collections, and then there's a set of metrics. These ones are the on-chain metrics. So we have TVL, gas fees, top-level transactions, lower-level invocations, active address counts, et cetera. And you get a few summary metrics overall for the round, and then you can go down at the chain level and finally at the project level. So you can see here's how much funding it received, and then here's roughly precisely the amount of the impact that happened across each of these categories. And then more roughly, we can actually convert those into units of OP allocated per unit of impact. Same thing here for dev tooling. This one's a bit more finicky because we don't have the same dev tooling metrics going back in time. So we only look at the latest snapshot. But yeah, this is the first version of it. I think it's a good first start. I was just sharing it to Lizzie as well. And hopefully over time, we can align on what these metrics mean and get more precise about how we calculate them. And then hopefully start actually having some table that allows you to compare roughly at least, the impact per unit of OP spent.
Cool. This is related to, I think you joined right after I asked this question. But it was the observation that with Evan's cursor rules, first of all, there was a question which is, do you know if Klein has an equivalent functionality where we can pass in that kind of context into Klein? Because I know you use Klein more often. And then the second question is, you know, have you tested that yet? And like, clearly, you make notebooks like very often. Like, how far are we from a Klein augmented or a cursor augmented workflow that is something that would actually accelerate your workflow, practically accelerate your workflow, not because we're asking you to, and it's something that you would actually use every day?
That's a very good question. I haven't tried using, the past week I haven't really done much in the Insights repo that would benefit from that. I did.
Like, the clipboard is a great example of like, is there a world where some form of this LLM augmented context could help you do that in half the time, right?
Right.
That's the question.
Yeah, I have to imagine there is. As an example, we had to make some updates to OSS directory. And so I tried creating some cursor rules for OSS directory that would basically allow you to drop in some pretty unstructured, I had it as like a JSON, but like, here are projects. Now go through and identify which ones need to be updated versus which ones need to be newly instantiated. And it was like 100 projects that got updated. I can probably see how long it took from start to finish. I think it was maybe 45 minutes or so. And I think it's actually a much better user experience because as it's going through, it will prompt you, do you want to approve or reject this change? And so you can literally see what's happening, see the file it's pulling up. And I found that to be much better than trying to do bulk updates. Now, maybe there's only 3 super users who actually value this, and they're on this call. But it was definitely an accelerant compared to how I typically had done it.
Yeah. I think OSS Directory, OSS Funding, and Insights, those 3 repos in particular, like, I would want to see what we can do to use these, LLM-based workflows to accelerate productivity.
Yep. Totally.
Like, to the point where we practically actually use them regularly, and to the point where it's in the README.
Yep.
Like, expected, like, because this is so undiscoverable. It's like, okay, great, you added cursor rules, but like, nobody really thinks like, you know what I mean? Like, it should be in the README, like, as, okay, if you want an LLM, like, there is the traditional flow. If there is no, there is no cursor, and then there's like an alternative flow in the README of, if you want to do this in an accelerated way, this is what it would look like.
Yep, exactly.
The same thing would be true for Insights. Like, we should, like, include setup, right?
Right.
Evan, the DevTool categorization stuff that you did, is that in the Team Drive public collab? Like where do we find that?
No. How do I add it to that? I just have it on the PR right now, like tagged. Or on the issue.
Actually, yeah. Let me know. We can add it together. I created something. I created a subdirectory which we can put that in, and so we should just have it there as well.
You're talking like, this is in the public share drive with the collab community, right? Is that, or is there somewhere else?
Were you going to download it, Evan?
Sorry, say it again.
Do you have just the collab notebook, or do you also have a? Oh, okay. Yeah, we do have a drive. I can just.
Yeah, I made it on my Kariba email. I just don't know how to, like, where to access.
We have a shared drive where we keep all of our public collabs. Let me see if you're added to that.
Cool. Yeah, I can add that then.
So if you go to connect OSO to Colab as one of our guides, there's actually a link to where you can get them.
But
Okay,
does he
cool.
have access?
If he has Kriba, his Kriba email, he should be able to put it in here. So here's what it looks like.
Okay. Yeah, I will follow that then and let you know if I have any problems, but it should be fine. Cool, cool, cool.
Okay, cool. All right. Anything else folks want to demo? Or any other questions?
That should be it.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Ciao, ciao.
Bye.
Right.